Welcome to EPG Pathashala. My name is Vidya-mitra. I am on the teaching faculty of the Department of Linguistics at Osmania University. My lecture today pertains to module number 15 of Psychoneurolinguistics. The title is Methods in Psycholinguistics. In this lecture, I will describe three major methods used in psycholinguistic research. Methods of speech perception, methods of comprehension, sentence comprehension, and speech production. Some of these methods are offline methods and some are online methods. So, let's look at some of the very first one is called infant speech perception research.
The way children perceive speech is one of the earliest techniques with youngest children, infants in fact, is called conditioned head turn procedure. In this method, what researchers are trying to find out is how infants are able to discriminate between speech sounds like say pa and ba. What they do is, in a sound treated room, infant is seated in the caregiver's lap, mother or whoever, and is habituated to listening to the same speech sound for some time. So they keep hearing ba 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 like that, and they get tired and they get habituated and conditioned to that speech sound. Then the infant is then taught to turn her head in the direction of a new sound when the ba is changed to say pa. When the child does that, the child is reinforced either by a smile or by a toy, as you can see in the picture shown on the screen in front of you. See, the child is looking at the toy and corresponding to change in the stimulus, head turn. So, a correct head turn results in visual reinforcement from the direction of the audio speaker. The experimenter also gives the infant social reinforcement via smiles and praise. Incorrect head turns are not reinforced. A criterion of specific number of head turns is used to decide whether the child is able to distinguish between two different speech sounds or not. I'm showing a web link on the screen. Please go on to this site to learn about other methodologies used with infants in the area of speech perception. What about perception is rudimentary, being able to distinguish pa from ba. But what about slightly higher level word comprehension of meanings? Here, the methodology used is called priming. This technique is based on the assumption that processing of a prime item has an effect on processing a subsequently presented word. See this on the screen. You will see under the title prime, you have under A, item A, tiger, and the target is giraffe. If suppose you are shown tiger or you heard tiger, your ability to respond to giraffe, saying it's a meaningful word or whatever it is much shorter. And this is positive priming. In other words, tiger and giraffe are semantically related. And so hearing tiger makes you go to the word giraffe in your mental lexicon and quickly respond to by pressing a button or whatever it is. So, item A, tiger, semantically is related to giraffe, and therefore your response to giraffe is much shorter, reaction time is shorter, and it is called positive priming. On the other hand, if you have heard timer and you are asked to respond to giraffe, whether it is a word or not word or whatever, there is no relation between timer and giraffe, and therefore you take a little longer time, and it is a negative priming.
So, what does priming tell us? Underlying assumption of this technique called priming is that the prime and the target, prime is the one given to you first, followed by a target word. So the assumption of priming technique is that prime and target stimuli have some relationship in the lexicon. They are stored together, or there is some associative relationship. So if prime speeds up performance on the target, the performance could be, you may be asked to say, is this a word in your language? Alright, you have to press a button. So that performance, if prime is able to boost the performance on the target, then there will be reaction time will be less. That is very quickly, boosting meaning less reaction time. Very soon you are able to reach the decision whether the target is a word or not a word in your language. So such result is taken as evidence that there is some relationship between the prime and the target. Okay. If a prime is not related to the target, then your reaction time will be longer and they are not associated. So priming studies are basically telling us something about how mental lexicon is organized, how words are related to each other.
Going on to another technique of assessing word monitoring, in this it's called word monitoring technique. In this method, participants hear certain words. Then they see a picture corresponding to the words. They are required to listen to a sentence in which that word may come or it may not come. The task of the participant is to press a button as soon as they hear the word in the sentence. The sentences can be grammatical or ungrammatical or meaningless, anomalous. They may or may not contain the target word. The idea of this technique is to see if reaction time slows down when processing ungrammatical or anomalous sentences compared to normal sentences. So, is there a difference in the way our mind helps us get to the meaning when you are processing ungrammatical sentences as opposed to normal control sentences? This technique is administered online. This is called online test. There is no, the participant has no time to reflect on his or her responses or think about it. So it's online test. Now, there's another very well-known technique called lexical decision task in psycholinguistics. This can be offline or online. Participants are asked to indicate whether each item, random word, letters presented are words or non-words by pressing a specified button. So, in lexical decision task, you measure both accuracy, that is, how many correct responses and how many are incorrect responses, as well as latency, response latency, which means how long has this person taken to say it is a word or not a word. So it tells us something about the organization of the mental lexicon itself, whether concrete words take less time, abstract words take more time, or frequent words. So there are many factors which influence the way we decide whether something we are seeing on the screen or we are hearing is a word or a non-word. In other words, lexical decision tasks can be administered auditorily or visually. There are more recent techniques in psycholinguistics. One is called visual world paradigm, and this is again deals with comprehension of words or sentences. So experiments using this paradigm, participants hear an utterance while looking at a display of an array of objects. So if one is interested in testing conceptual or lexical knowledge, you see different objects or some scenes. But if your focus of the research is detection of ambiguity, then you see a sentence.
The visual world paradigm, the typical picture is shown on the screen. Please carefully observe the picture. The first picture is called single referent condition. In this condition, the eyes move to the apple first and then to the towel, because you would have processed the sentence, put the apple on the towel. It's a ambiguous sentence. You think you have to move the apple to the towel, to the empty towel, and then you get it's a mistaken destination. So at the end of the sentence, the eyes move back to the apple on the box, apple, and then to the box. Box is the correct destination. You are supposed to put the apple in the box, not on the towel. So this is called garden path effect. That is, you are misled into thinking what is the destination, where you are supposed to put the apple. Initially your mind misled you. Instead of having a single reference condition, so if suppose in place of pencil, there is a pencil, right, in the picture that you have seen, you take out the pencil, you put another apple, and that particular scene is called double referent condition. But don't put the apple on the towel, all right. And then if you hear a sentence like, put the apple that's on the towel in the box, there will be no ambiguity. There is one apple which is not on the towel, one apple which is on the towel. You've been told to move the apple on the towel into the box, and it's very clear cut. There is no garden path effect there, all right. So the eyes don't go back, and this is how visual world paradigm works. So the second condition is shown on the screen next. Watch, there are two apples. One apple is on the towel, one apple is there is a box and there is an empty towel, and there is another apple, but that is not on the towel, it is on a napkin or something like that. So basically, by creating the visual world, the whole idea of this experiment is whether cues in the visual environment guide our ability to interpret the meaning of a sentence. And research has shown that they do guide. We do take into consideration the cues that are available in the environment in which somebody is speaking to you.
So, how does eye tracking is telling us about comprehension? The eye movement pattern is recorded. The way the saccadic movement of the eyeballs going back and forth is recorded. The visual information guides the participant to make correct attachment of the prepositional phrase. Put the apple on the towel. On the towel belongs to the apple, that noun phrase. So it is the visual, how we are able to take the cues from the visual environment and understand the meaning of the sentence is what is examined using this technique. In recent years, instead of using objects, they're also using printed words to see how ambiguity is detected in sentences. Look at the screen. You see the sentence, the knight attacked the windmill on his donkey. Now this is slightly ambiguous sentence. The knight who's on the donkey attacked the windmill. But it's written and also you will hear it as the knight attacked the windmill on his donkey. Look at the eye movements. They're all marked. First fixation is the first word 1, knight 2, attacked 3. Then your eyes go directly into windmill. What did the knight attack? Windmill. So number 4 is on the windmill. Number 5 is on the windmill. Then you see on his donkey, you get confused. Your eyes goes back to attacked. So 6 is on attacked. Then your eyes come back to windmill, 7. Then 8 is on, 9 and 10 is his donkey. Okay. So you can see the lines going from the eye movements are recorded like this. Now, what is measured in eye tracking? Fixation duration. One measure is fixation duration. That is the time one spends at a given location. And then the eyes move. They are called, eye movements are called saccades. So the eye tracker can measure fixation duration, which is typically about 225 milliseconds. But it depends upon how good a reader you are, whether you are a beginning reader or an advanced reader. Fixation span refers to size of the area, that is number of letters you pick up at once. Alright, we have discussed it earlier. The beginning readers or novice readers can pick up 3 letters, whereas advanced readers can pick up as many as 9 letters at one time. So that is also measured. Then regressions, that is backward movements of the eyes while you are reading, are called regression. That I have pointed out to you earlier, that advanced readers show only 10 to 15% of regressions. So these are what is measured in eye tracking. How do you interpret the results? So you go back and look at the sentence that we discussed earlier on which eye tracking information is recorded. The knight attacked the windmill on the donkey, and you will see that there are a lot of regressions because it is an ambiguous sentence. Okay, so if you make the sentence less ambiguous by rephrasing it, then the eye movements will also differ. So that's how you show processing of ambiguous versus unambiguous sentences are different in terms of time taken, in terms of eye fixations, eye span, number of regressions. So this is how you measure reading comprehension, reading with comprehension. Let us look at another method that is used in reading English sentences. This method is called self-paced reading. This, or sometimes it is also called moving window method. Here, parts of the sentence are revealed one at a time, keeping the past and future parts of the sentence hidden. Participants decide when to move to the next part of that sentence. So if suppose the sentence is, the cat sat on the mat, on the computer screen you see the, then only when you press, when you're ready you press, then you get cat, when you press again you get sat. So it is self-paced reading. How long you take to read and move on to get to the meaning of the whole sentence. This methodology allows us to measure amount of time a person spends reading each word of a sentence by measuring the amount of time that section of the sentence stays on the screen. So what is measured in this? Reaction time for each word or phrase is measured in milliseconds. Expert readers take less time than beginning readers. This technique has been used in studies that focused on processing of phrase structure, lexical semantic information, prosodic information, and even garden path effects. So this technique is used in all these studies.
Okay, we looked at some methods of comprehension. Now let's look at how speech production is assessed, what kind of methods are used in speech production. In the initial years, one of the earliest technique that was used was to study naturally occurring slips of the tongue, what are known as speech errors. And much of this kind of research offered us evidence that we draw on specific words, that is lexical items, as well as abstract and higher level knowledge about events in the world. And the speech production researchers were concerned about how are these two mapped. Okay, we have a vocabulary, we have a lexicon full of words, we know the meanings of those words, but we also have a lot of world knowledge about events in which those objects or those words, come. So how do you map this lexical knowledge with the world knowledge? And so that is the aim of the research on this. So the other technique that was used in speech production research is tip of the tongue phenomena, right? So I'm sure all of you are aware of there are times maybe when we are very tired or distracted, somebody asks a question, you know the answer, you know the word comes to your mind, but you don't know, you don't have access to the actual form. You keep saying, it will come, just a minute, give me some time, it's on the tip of my tongue, right? So basically what tip of the tongue phenomena is saying is that there is a difference between a more abstract lexeme level information, which is about meaning of a word, and form level information, which is like actual linguistic form used in a given language to encode that meaning. So, the separation of lemma is the meaning level information and lexeme is the form level information. So, most models of speech production distinguish between existence of lemma and lexeme. So, in tip of the tongue, you have access to lemma but not lexeme. That is what is explained as tip of the tongue phenomena. And they have devised interesting ways of inducing tip of the tongue phenomena also. For this, I suggest you go back to the e-text and see how TOT can be induced.
We experience tip of the tongue when we are able to access lemma but not lexeme. That is what is called tip of the tongue. That is, we are able to get hold of the meaning of that concept, but we are not able to actually get the sounds making up that word. Alright? So, but how can one study tip of the tongue? Believe it or not, you can induce tip of the tongue phenomena. So, psycholinguists have tried asking participants. How do they do that? They basically give definition and then they say, now give the word. So, when this happens, like some famous film star who acted in a movie or something, you describe everything and you say, what's the name of the person? And that can induce tip of the tongue. But that phenomena, when you experience that phenomena, most participants can say, the name starts with this letter, it has so many syllables, or if in languages where there is grammatical gender like Hindi, you can even say, oh, it's a feminine word or it's a masculine word. You can say all this but not the actual word. That's why it's called tip of the tongue. It is at the tip of your tongue but it's not coming out. Alright? So, they also use something called syntactic priming to understand how we produce longish, moving from word to sentence level, how are we able to produce longer sentences is studied using syntactic priming. And also, if we are asked to see a picture that you are seeing in the screen now, it involves motion of an alien creature who's sitting on top of a car and is trying to go into a cave. Alright, you are shown 3 sequences of this picture. In sequence A, the alien is sitting on the car and car is quite far away from the cave. In sequence B, the B part of the sequence, the alien on the car is approached the cave. In final part, it's entering the cave. So if you are shown a cartoon, animated video clip and you are asked to say, please describe, you are eliciting speech production at the sentence level. What kind of sentences do you get? The motion event contains the following components which are very important. One is driving. Driving is manner verb, and entered, which is a path verb. We could describe this scene differently depending upon what our mind is making us focus on. We can either say the target sentence, expected target sentence in English is, an alien drives a car into the cave. In response to that picture, you say an alien drives a car into the cave. This is what is expected. But suppose you are focusing on driving, you might say an alien is driving a car. So here only manner is focused. Or you might say an alien entered the cave. Here your focus is on path, alone. Or you might say an alien in a car goes into a cave. In this expression you have both manner and path components. These semantic components both are there. So I'll now describe one new study by Bungar et al. Who wanted to, the idea is called syntactic priming. They created prime sentences by manipulating these elements. Remember I talked about manner of motion or path of motion. So by manipulating those elements, in a prime sentence, but keeping the entire event structure intact. So if the prime sentence had manner, he wanted to know if participants will only use manner in their production of the sentence, and if prime sentence had path, will the participants also use only path in the sentence. That is, they are influenced by the prime. Will they be influenced by the prime is what this researcher wanted to know. So several sentences were created, the scenes were shown, and they collected data. So in this study demonstrated that priming using any of the motion components can influence the way participants describe an event containing motion. So, of course, languages differ with respect to how they permit users to encode motion elements. That is, how path is conveyed. Is path conveyed using verbs, or is path lies outside the verb? Or English, for instance, verbs carry manner information, whereas they say in Hindi and Tamil and some of our languages, most of the verbs are path verbs. So each language has different lexical resources. So Hindi and maybe even Telugu, the speakers looking at the same scene might choose to pay attention more to the path because most of the verbs convey path information, right? Whereas English speakers might encode, that is, in their sentences there may be more manner information. So, in other words, we are talking about event structure and language production. So, we have an understanding about the event structure. Alright. So, of course, if you go back to, I think the entire reference is given in the e-text, you will get more details about how they developed these sentences, who are the participants, what are the prime sentences, what events were used. You will understand this study much more. So, I suggest that you do that. But the main conclusion of this study is event structure priming can affect message planning. Please recall, message planning is at a higher level, as well as grammatical encoding stages of the speech production process.
To summarize today's lecture, I started with a description of behavioral technique called conditioned head turn method, which is used with young infants to see whether they are able to distinguish syllabic level units like say par, bar, ter, der, whatever, the sound contrasts. And very young children are able to distinguish these contrasts when you use that particular method. Next, we looked at some methods of comprehension of meaning of words and sentences. We looked at priming studies, word monitoring studies, and then we looked at eye tracking and self-paced reading methods that are used in psycholinguistic research to examine the process of comprehension. Lastly, I moved on to the area of production, and I talked about slip of the tongue or speech error research. I briefly mentioned it, and tip of the tongue phenomena. All these are explained in greater length in the e-text. So, and also more readings are also suggested there. So, I urge you to go back and consult the e-text for more information. The aim of this lecture was only to familiarize you with different type of methods under these categories of perception, comprehension and production. And I hope you have got the main points. Thank you.